Hello everybody, hope you're doing well and thanks for joining us for another video. It's been said for a while now, flat earthers haven't brought anything new to their argument for a number of years. Instead, they just keep regurgitating the same old claims over and over, and they don't have a working model that can explain everything like the globe does. However, recently, flat earthers seem to be brandishing a new saviour for this, with an apparently new model that can explain everything observable in the sky. It was seemingly created by Alan of Space Audit, and it's been pushed very heavily on X by Shane St. Pierre, who's been making some rather bold claims about it. Such as, in response to the many people that point out flat earthers don't have a working model, here he says, quote, "Yes, we do. An observer-based sky model, no globe constraints, no radius, just angles, timing and position," end quote. This post stating, quote, "Oh look, a standalone geocentric model using Ptolemy's epicycles. It uses 0 heliocentric ephemeris references, no AU, no globe radius, no circumference, pure epicycle maths," end quote. Another one claiming, quote, "100% unrefuted on model rebuttals. The only ephemeris used is a custom-built one from Ptolemaic epicycles only," end quote. This one here saying, quote, "Still 0 rebuttals to this model. No one has shown any globe anything to be present in the code, meaning it's properly displaying celestial observations without it. How is that possible, globies?" end quote. And then another post claiming the only sun objections so far were apparently, yeah, but what about sunsets? Strangely, note that he posted this on the 17th of May, yet a week before I'd rebutted the model with the actual lack of sunsets, specifically the one we documented in Antarctica in 2024 that doesn't work with this model. But I'll get onto that in a bit. Because for all Shane's chest beating about this is a fully working, 100% accurate model for flat Earth that doesn't use the globe, and other flat earthers have been brandishing this as an apparent game changer, reality is, it's the complete opposite for several reasons. So, here's their model. It's got this flat Earth base, you can move the observer around to whatever location you want. Wherever the observer goes, this dome moves with them, which is their claimed dome of vision.
You each have your own dome of vision, your own apparent sky, and your own personally observable hemisphere. The globe argues that the hemisphere is created by physical Earth curvature coming up and blocking out that half of the sky. And the argument from the other side, I think, would be that it's an optical convergence of where the sky meets the ground, and that humans cannot see forever and over great distances. The natural acuity limit means that you'll eventually be unable to see any further, and the optical convergence of the sky and the ground meet, and that's not due to ground curvature.
Basically, their idea is that the stars and the planets are circling at a constant altitude above the Earth, but everybody has a hemisphere of vision that whilst, say, during the equinox, the sun would be circling around, staying directly over the equator. For an observer standing on the equator, rather than seeing the sun circling around following a curved path like you'd expect, like watching the edge of a ceiling fan blade while you're standing directly below it, instead, for some reason, due to unknown mechanics, they instead see the sun travel a perfectly straight path east to west, with noon being directly overhead, exactly like you'd expect on the globe. Now, he states repeatedly that this model was made using Ptolemy's epicycles only. It doesn't use the globe at all, apparently. Even stating here in the special thanks section that the coding for the model is built upon R.H. van Gendt's Almagest ephemeris calculator. Now, Ptolemy was an ancient Greek astronomer whose probably most notable work was titled Almagest, which used cycles and epicycles to explain the movements of planets in a geocentric model. The issue is, Ptolemy didn't think the Earth was flat. Flat earthers constantly claim theirs is a geocentric model, seemingly under the impression that geocentric means flat Earth. Except it doesn't. Geocentric literally means Earth at the center. Geo, Earth, centric, center. So heliocentric has the sun at the center of the solar system. The Earth isn't the center of this flat Earth model, it's at the bottom of it. Ptolemy lived around 100 AD. That's 300 years after Eratosthenes had worked out the size of the globe. And amusingly, Ptolemy lived in Alexandria, the very place where Eratosthenes had measured the length of a shadow to work out the size of the globe. Ancient Greeks had long known the Earth was a sphere. Their problem was everything else. They thought the Earth was the centre and the sky revolved around the globe. Ptolemy's epicycles were a breakthrough in trying to explain why some planets like Mars appear to go retrograde. Rather than having Mars directly orbit the Earth, Ptolemy postulated that Mars was orbiting around a point and that point was orbiting around the Earth, kind of like a spirograph. That way, for the most part, Mars would be seen travelling in the same direction, but every so often it would briefly reverse course. But all of Ptolemy's own models and maths, and even the ephemeris calculator that Shane confirms his model is built upon, were done with the basis that the Earth is a globe. I mean, Ptolemy's original work is seemingly still in a museum, but obviously it's not in English. However, I did find several versions of translated copies of Ptolemy's Almagest work. And of particular interest, I think, is this section here, Sphericity of the Heavens, where it says, quote, "The heaven is spherical in shape and moves as a sphere. The earth, too, is sensibly spherical in shape when taken as a whole. In position, it lies in the middle of the heavens, very much like its centre," end quote. You can even see within Shane's model, it clearly has a celestial sphere, except rather than a globe at the centre of the celestial sphere, they've shrank the sphere down and only show half of it at a time. Hence why their own model projects everything crashing into the ground and vanishing for absolutely no reason. And why, when you change their model to supposedly show the globe, the celestial sphere is tiny and chunks of it are missing. In reality, the globe should have the sphere much larger and encompassing the entire globe. But obviously they couldn't show that globe model accurately, else some of their audience might start to think it makes more sense. So for all his claims that the model doesn't use the globe, everything about it actually has its roots very much grounded in the globe. Now I have to say, overall this model is pretty poor. Not just for accuracy, we'll get onto that in a minute, but just overall usability. The controls and the interface are just clunky and unintuitive. Maybe that's intentional to dissuade people from using it too much and learning what's wrong with it. Now, if you want a user-friendly experience with intuitive controls where you can actually learn something, then check out the all-new and improved version of Brilliant that is sponsoring this video. I'm a long-time user of Brilliant. In fact, I have completed classes on Brilliant every single day without fail for more than 3 years. This is one of the best ways to make hard topics more understandable, and now it's been made even more effective thanks to Koji, your very own tutor that can help you along with maths and coding classes. Because learning's not just about parroting off the answers, it's about understanding the logic behind the answer. So if you're struggling with a particular question, you can call up Koji, who will help guide you to the answer. And thanks to their app, it can fit very easily around your life. I was completing classes even whilst I was in Antarctica. But don't just take my word for it. Visit brilliant.org/Dave McKeegan by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code on screen to try Brilliant and its brand new tutor for free today. And if you enjoy it half as much as I do, you'll also get 20% off a premium subscription. Now, let's get into Shane's claims about the model being 100% accurate. Now, we can prove this one's wrong pretty quickly just by pulling up a solar eclipse. Shane has previously bragged about apparently winning a $10,000 bet to predict the 2028 eclipse on a flat Earth. So I decided to take a look at that eclipse on his model. I set the observer's latitude and longitude to 15.6 degrees south, 126.7 degrees east, the exact coordinates he gave in his bet post. And I set the date for July 21st, 2028, and I told the model to track the sun and just let it play. And to be fair, it does show the moon eclipsing the sun, though it doesn't show a total eclipse. So I looked at the eclipse path, and it has a partial eclipse reaching as far south as the edge of Antarctica and as far north as the edge of China, but the path of totality goes straight through Sydney. So I changed my observer location to be in Sydney, slap bang in the middle of the path of totality. Yet Shane's model still shows a mostly obscured sun, not a total eclipse. Now, at the moment of totality, for an observer on the line of totality, moving then further north or south, you would see gradually reducing amounts of eclipse, with those at the very edge of the path only seeing the edge of the sun being obscured. So I then tried a completely different location. I put the observer way up in Russia. A person here in 2028 would not see any of that eclipse. Yet strangely, Shane's model predicts exactly the same, very heavily eclipsed sun here that it predicted in Sydney, despite the fact that one location should have a total eclipse and one should have no eclipse at all. Shane's model predicts the wrong thing for both locations. This model is placing the sun and the moon at the exact same distance away, so there's no parallax shift when you move observer's location. For example, if you place a cover over part of a light on the ceiling, it doesn't matter where you move, the light will always be obscured by the same amount. But if you place something a distance away from a light, now it only obscures the light from certain places, and the amount it obscures changes as the observer moves. So Shane's 100% accurate model is not 100% accurate at all. But then some people had seemingly brought up the moons of Jupiter. I've previously mentioned the moons of Jupiter as being a problem for flat Earth, because at times you can see its moons align like an arrow in the sky, but the direction that they point changes depending on the observer's latitude. Now, Shane made a post in response to somebody who'd brought up the moons of Jupiter, saying, quote, "Okay, Tom, just for you, now all the moons of Jupiter are accurately rendered using Ptolemaic epicycles only. Welcome to flat Earth," end quote. I saw somebody else even repost this, calling it a mic drop. Except I then had to question them as to why we don't see stars in front of the planets, given that you can see in Shane's own post that the star field sits between the Earth and the planets, so we should then see stars going across the moon and the planets, which we don't, though they didn't seem to have an answer for this. Even if you were to drop the planets down below the stars though, the whole thing doesn't make sense. Why have this dome over each observer as the observer's personal dome of vision? So that must be the limit of our vision, otherwise you'd be seeing the sun on the dome of vision as well as the actual sun through it, so you'd be seeing two suns in the sky. But then if the dome is the farthest that we can see, how could we see the sun, the moon, the planets and the stars at all, since they're further away? If the limit of my vision is 100 meters, then anything beyond 100 meters I would not be able to see. Of course, the reality is we don't have a limit to our vision because it's not projected from our eyes. Our eyes simply receive light, so as long as light is reaching us from an object, we can see it. If the sun and the planets were too far away for us to see their actual location when the light is traveling directly from them to our eyes, then our eyes certainly would not be able to see the light that's taking an even longer route via this dome of vision. And camera sensors definitely do not have a limit of vision either, so they should be able to then see the physical location of these celestial bodies, not just the same dome of vision that we apparently see. But obviously my first thought upon seeing all these claims about a 100% accurate flat Earth model was, I can't wait to see how they explain the 24-hour sun in Antarctica, since one of the videos Shane even shared specifically stated it worked with the 24-hour sun.
It real-time syncs to everything now. It shows every eclipse that's ever happened. You can watch the sun's path. Took any of the demos that shows 24-hour sun and moon analemma demonstrations.
Except when I looked at it, it didn't, other than to just say the sun circles you wherever you are in Antarctica because reasons. Which is why I found it especially strange to then see Austin Whitsitt shared Shane's post about the model simply saying fire, given that Austin was one of the people who went to Antarctica and saw the 24-hour sun. Now, obviously, it did not take long for someone to point out to Austin that the model didn't explain the 24-hour sun in Antarctica, to which Austin's response was, quote, "You actually not see how illogical it is to say other falsifications and impossibilities should be ignored because you haven't heard a satisfactory explanation for a single observation," end quote. Which is an obviously strange attitude to take. Flat Earthers are all too happy to call the globe debunked the moment they find a single observation that they think doesn't work with it, but they will hang on to Flat Earth by their teeth no matter how many observations you give them that don't work with it. So I responded to Austin highlighting Shane repeatedly stated this model is 100% accurate and can account for everything observable from anywhere. Well, if it can't explain the 24-hour sun in Antarctica, then the model's wrong. But then changing the model to try and make it fit the 24-hour sun in Antarctica would change everything else, so nothing else would work. It's the same age-old problem that Flat Earth has faced for years. I also pointed out to Austin that the model is based on the AE map, which we proved wrong during the same trip by the fact we measured the distance between lines of longitude and showed the gap between them actually shrank as you move further south past the equator, not get larger like the AE map dictates would happen. Though I also highlighted on a few other posts about how the 24-hour sun in Antarctica debunks this model of Shane's, and Shane himself responded, trying to claim the model has different demonstrations that show the apparent position correctly. This is where I nearly fell off my chair laughing, because the demonstration that Shane shows to try and argue the model can accurately explain the Antarctic sun uses a completely different map than his previous posts. This one has Antarctica as an island and Africa where the North Pole was. So their way of explaining one observation is to completely change the Earth to suit it and just hope nobody notices. But even their other demo that does use the AE map still doesn't actually make any sense. They've got the actual sun circling over the tropic and then this apparent sun circling the observer in Antarctica, but we observed the sun stay the exact same angular size throughout the entire 24-hour period. Yet on this model, when the apparent sun was to our north, the actual sun was nearly the exact same distance away from the observer, yet we couldn't see any of it. And when the apparent sun could be seen in the south, the actual sun was on the opposite side of the Earth, and yet it still appeared the exact same size to us as it did when it was in the north, for no explainable reason whatsoever. Someone else then responded, pointing out the Transglobe expedition that circled the Earth via both poles and highlighting that doesn't work with Shane's model, where Antarctica is an ice wall. Shane's response was to say, quote, "No, it's not, you're confusing the map with the model as every glober in history has done," end quote. So, according to Shane, the map isn't important for the model, except quite how you're supposed to be able to show the ground positions of celestial objects without an accurate map to know what part of Earth each celestial body is directly over, I'm not quite sure. Though, in another post in response to somebody else, Shane then states they need to change the map to the AE projection. So somehow, according to him, maps aren't part of the model and they're not important, but he also says they are and you need the right map for the model to work. Go figure. I also love the fact that the model claims to include satellites. A, how the hell do satellites launched from Earth stay in orbit over a flat Earth? B, why is their apparent positions going all over the place and crashing into the ground as well? And flat earthers claim that gravity is magic. So Shane's 100% accurate flat Earth model is not accurate at all because it can't accurately predict eclipses for all locations on Earth. It can only show an eclipse is happening if one is happening somewhere on Earth, but not how it will appear for all locations on Earth. And it still can't explain the 24-hour Antarctic sun. Well, not without completely changing to a different map that would then screw up every other prediction the model makes using the AE map. If you want a model that can accurately show all this stuff and more, look at Stellarium. It will show you accurate eclipses anywhere on Earth. It will explain the 24-hour sun and everything else by having a complete celestial sphere and using the heliocentric model. But I guess that means this model of Shane's is no longer a 100% unrefuted model. Well, unless Shane just completely ignores this video. So, that's going to be it for this. As always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already done so, then please do consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.